sites, I'm the operations manager for Maskoff. We manufacture pressure-sensitive, adhesive-coated tapes, both paper and film, and we manufacture in large master rolls and then chop them down to smaller size manageable rolls for the customer. Kind of like what you see in a Home Depot, like with 3M, but we do it more large scale for larger equipment manufacturers such as Boeing, Airbus,
Okay.
et cetera, et cetera. Mostly pressure-sensitive application for like surface protection.
Okay.
So if you're ever involved with a situation where the surface of your product is very prone to damage, and if that damage is going to cost you a large dollar amount to fix or repair or scrap the part and start again, customers find the benefit of spending a little bit more than what you would normally spend on a roll of masking tape to cover that product to make sure it doesn't get damaged. You have 22 employees and between 5 and 6 million a year. So
Okay.
we're a very small company. Most people produce a lot of standard products, nuts, bolts, screws, all this kind of stuff. It's okay. We produce a product and you pick from a catalog. We produce standard products, but the size of those products, can be anywhere from, kind of like in the case of screws, you have multiple different kinds of screws, but typically those are designated by what you manufacture. In our case, we manufacture stuff for the customer. We have standard sizes of all of our products, but they can take a roll of 48-inch by 30-yard product and chop it down to 3 rolls of 6-inch, 2 rolls of 3-inch, 2 rolls of 4-inch, and they can basically take that 48 inches and do whatever the heck they want with it. The amount of product that we put out the door for large customers with as few employees as we have, and being a small company, the customer service side of things is definitely unique because the price of the product, we stand by the product because if somebody gets a roll of tape from us and the adhesion is not right, it's not typical, it's not within our specification, or even if it's within specification, but the customer is just saying, listen, if for some reason it's not working, we'll oftentimes take that roll of tape back and supply them a new product, where you oftentimes don't find that with larger tape manufacturers. In some cases, we'll lose out the name brand, like a 3M or an Avery. They'll trust a bigger name brand. So that's probably our biggest competition, is name brand and name recognition. The product we were using before was called 4Shift. QuickBooks for payroll. We were running Microsoft Access, I believe, was being used to extract information from 4Shift and spit it out into an Excel spreadsheet. So Crystal Reports was being utilized, and the slitting program was an external program that we had to use and then import it into 4Shift. The limitations that we saw with it was, number one, the amount of the program we were actually able to use, because just simple knowledge of the program itself, and the unavailability of training from the software manufacturer. So we get into a situation where we'd be looking for some sort of like cost accounting analysis, or even production analysis, and it would take an arm and a leg to get the information out of the software, and there's maybe only one person in the whole company that know how to do it. So bottom line is, we got tired of relying on one person to do things and have knowledge of the software that we didn't have. So oddly enough, conversations have been had about replacing the software, about actually having software custom made from the ground up for us. Finding somebody to do it was challenging, and then actually when the Navigator salesperson walked in the door, it was just sort of a cold call, good timing, and he said it was from SAP, and my initial thought was SAP is way too big for us, and then when we got to talking to him, showed us in a very short amount of time that that Business One could actually function for us as even as small as we are. No, just we were looking at the newest version of 4Shift, but that was kind of quickly squashed when they were unwilling to come out and demonstrate the product itself. So in my evaluation process of where we're going to go, found out that there was only 1,000 global users of 4Shift. And basically with software, they're not going to have a whole lot of developmental budget for 1,000 global users and then if they did have any sort of development, the amount of change they can implement is going to be minimal, because if you change too many things, 1,000 users are going to come back and say, we don't like it. My vision going forward was that, management learning SAP along with, the administrative staff that was using it on a daily basis would allow us the knowledge to maybe extract information by ourselves, do analysis on our own without having to rely on someone else to actually do the stuff for us. I think in a lot of cases, the time it took for things like order entry, the availability of simple knowledge, basically, it's like, a lot of the things that SAP does were pretty certain 4Shift could do. It's just no one knew how to do it. So to actually see how to perform, information extraction in terms of, cost accounting and, production analysis in terms of profitability and all that kind of stuff, actually seeing it in action helped us out to, actually think that there's a solution out there for this problem we're having of not knowing how to extract information. I think that, it's a situation where a lot of things that we rely on a CPA for can maybe even be done internally. I think some of the processes that that come around when it comes time to do some data, financial analysis, I think there might be I think the reports might be easier to A, extract, and B, to understand. Because the reports that were printed out from 4Shift oftentimes had to be translated onto some sort of Excel spreadsheet, because they were very difficult to follow and very difficult to understand without some detailed explanation. Whereas you print out the reports from Business One, as long as you know what you're reading, they're relatively self-explanatory. We're not a real analytical company. We don't spend a lot of time in meetings. We're not meeting people. So a lot of times it's just, our inventory meetings are about the longest meeting of our week, and that's about 15 minutes. But accounts receivable, is just basically extract data like, please tell me which customers are 60 days past due and over, and we can target those customers as opposed to having to go into each individual customer and send an email or send a fax or send whatever, another invoice out to them, whatever. It'll just generated letter to all of the 60 days and over customers and just blast them out. That's one. Like I said, I believe that inefficiencies from the standpoint that I was pretty easily able to teach our chemist and our production supervisor how to do a production order, whereas they were never even shown once in 4Shift how to do a production order, which is odd for a production supervisor not to know how to do a production order. So being able to spread out responsibilities to people that should be doing those jobs. Quality control. We were able to add some user-defined fields where our chemist, when he was doing quality QC checks, he could actually enter the data into Business One. Where if a customer calls and says they're having a problem with the product, I can immediately go into that production order and see if the QC numbers were in spec with the customer on the phone. I mean, because instead of having I had to walk physically out on the production floor and flip through a binder and pull handwritten notes out. Now it's automated. It's in the system, and now we can actually start throwing away binders of paperwork we've been keeping for the last 4 years. there was no communication between sales and customer service. So in the case where one of the salesperson's prospects were to call and place an order for the first time, unless there was some sort of conversation about it or a heads up about it, customer service wouldn't have any idea that that was their customer. So the communication between sales and customer service has now been closed. Because we have the knowledge of the software, we can actually teach people that are supposed to do that job how to do that job in the software and not have to make a request to administration to do that job for them. I think the relationship improved dramatically after we decided to go full implementation.
It's been very good since we brought Sandra on board. Sandra's been amazing. She really has. She speaks very clearly. She understands where you're at, and helps you get to an understanding. So she's been very beneficial in making the experience with Navigator a positive one.
Sandra's understanding of accounting, because the timing was perfect, because Dee was still learning the controller job, and her unfamiliarity with the technical aspects of accounting, and Sandra's knowledge of accounting, she sort of filled. I think she not only trained Dee how to use SAP, but I think she also trained Dee on accounting at the same time. So that is definitely a huge benefit. In terms of the slinging program, we're basically almost, because of, I mean, there's always so many ways you can do it. Essentially, when we manufacture our product, we take an adhesive and apply it to a paper or film and run it through a dryer, and it's produced into large master size rolls. So we'll produce, on a production roll, we'll produce 10,000 yards at a time. Those 10,000 yards might be on 6 master rolls. Okay, so then we take those master rolls and we hook them up to a converting machine that then slits them down to the small sizes that go out to the customer. Okay. So the management side of it is just all inventory. Of that master roll, how much did you take off? How much of it was for the customer? How much of it did you throw away? How much of it are you putting back in inventory? And how much of that master roll are you putting back in inventory? Okay. So it's there's multiple facets of what's been taken off of that one jumbo master roll, and then what's put back in what's put back in inventory, and what's tossed, and what's scrap, and what's just normal production spoilage. In 4-shift, you have to do the slitting, and then you have to do some accounting inventory adjustments. You have to go from the slitting program to 4-shift, and then back to the slitting program again, or you have to do some stuff in 4-shift, and then go to do your slitting report stuff. We're trying to improve the slitting program where we can do both of those functions inside of the slitting report and have it all be more of a linear process. The future of Mask-Off is slow growth, because I don't want fast growth. Because people that experience fast growth oftentimes lose sight of who they really are. But I believe that our growth in terms of monetary growth, is going to really come down to maybe the ability to evaluate costs and evaluate, where our money is going in terms of production costs and administrative costs and all that kind of stuff. And I think SAP will give us a better, quicker insight without having to rely on someone else to get that information for us to make those decisions that might enable us to cut some costs and increase our profit margin without having to go out and increase our sales by 30%. I do see the benefit of possibly adding data collect to our production floor down the line, and I believe that's where I would probably see a lot of efficiencies begin to kick in terms of production, because there's a lot of time spent with guys on the production floor entering handwritten data on the paper that's then taken into the office and translated into Business One, Whereas I think in a lot of cases, some of the guys on the production floor can translate it into data collected better than the administration staff can translate it themselves. That's where I probably start to see a lot of efficiencies begin to take shape.
Okay.
But business, obviously, having business one allows us to make that decision down the road, whereas with ForShift, we didn't even have that option. Explore all options. Even if the answer is no at the end of the day, it's better to go out and learn that the answer is no than just to say no for the sake of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm always open to change, as long as it makes sense. And in this case, I knew. I look at it from the standpoint of, yes, it works for everybody now, but is it going to work for me for what I want to do with the company after my dad retires? And it's me sitting here 20 years from now with my son possibly sitting across the hall from me saying, why did you change this 20 years ago? So, you know what I mean? It's because now we're finding ourselves in a position where suddenly we have to make a drastic, sudden change because the software that we're using is no longer available, or it doesn't work for the operating systems on our workstations, or for whatever ungodly things can come down the pipe. You know what I mean? So when you only hear that the software that you're using is used by 1,000 people worldwide, you don't necessarily see a future for that software. So it might work now, but it won't work 20 years from now.